Tonight's the night, match day 2 in the UEFA Champions League, and Paris Saint-Germain are in town. Can the Gunners register their first victory in European competition this season? Luis Enrique's side have started the season very, very well. They sit top of the pile in France and defeated Girona on match day 1. But will the Arsenal have too much firepower for the Parisians under the lights in front of a sellout crowd? This is the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou. Hey everybody, how you doing? Hope you're all good. Hope you're all well. Hope you're having a great Tuesday so far. It is chucking it down in North London, so I'm not anticipating the best conditions this evening. But hey, it is what it is. Nothing's going to dampen our spirits ahead of a big night in the UEFA Champions League. And look, people look at Champions League fixtures sometimes and they say, oh, you know, that's a tough one. I don't fancy that. I don't want to play this lot. I don't want to play that lot. I quite enjoy these big blockbuster games, if you want to call them that. I think that's the very reason that you want to be in the Champions League. Obviously, you want to go on and win it, and if the draw opens up for you, hey, that's great, isn't it? But ultimately, you want to test yourself. You want to see your team compete, I think, against the very, very best in the business. So I'm really, really looking forward to tonight. I think it's going to be a fascinating game. We'll explain a little bit why I think that as the show goes on as well. A big hello to everybody who is joining us in the live chat. If you're watching this back on YouTube or listening to this on your favourite podcast store, then good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this, to you guys as well. Lots of people saying in the chat that the lineup picks itself. I think it almost does. I don't think it 100% does, because I think Champions League is very different to Premier League, and I think you're going to face different challenges tonight than what you'd face in the Premier League against the best sides in our division. So I'm really kind of looking forward to exploring what I think the lineup should be, and then sharing with you guys some of the thinking behind some of the decisions that I've made. Now, it's not necessarily the team I think Mikel Arteta will pick. In fact, it's not far off what I think Mikel Arteta will pick, but this is the team that if I were in the dugout, if I were wearing that cool long sleeve jumper that Mikel wears with those grey trousers and the shiny shoes, or the shoes with the white trim around the bottom, depending on what he's feeling like on the day, then this is the team that I would pick. So we'll get into that. But first of all, I just wanted to touch on the UEFA Champions League format, because obviously it's changed this season. It's been much talked about, much discussed. And I said from the outset that I'd give it a chance. But my early thoughts on it are a little bit mixed. I've got to be honest. I think that when you zoom out and you look at some of the fixtures that we saw last week and some of the fixtures that we're seeing this week, you know, there are some tasty games on paper available for us all to watch, which in theory is kind of what it was designed to do. It was designed to create more blockbuster fixtures at an earlier stage of the competition, so that it would appeal to TV rights buyers, so that it would appeal to international audiences, which is what would then get the TV companies to go out and pay big money for it. And it's designed to utilize the names that the UEFA Champions League has in terms of clubs, but also individual players, and sell their product far and wide. That's what the idea behind it was. But is the competition itself actually better for it, given that all the games now seem to have less jeopardy? Now, I went into the season thinking, actually, there'll be more jeopardy in games, because if you lose one, you can tumble down the table quite far. If you win one, you can jump up quite far, given that everybody's so close together. But at the same time, I just think that it's an awful lot of games to eliminate very, very few teams. And I'm kind of at the point now where I'm leaning more towards the negative side of it than the positive side. Now, look, the fact that we went to Atalanta, the fact that we're playing Paris Saint-Germain under the lights at Emirates Stadium tonight in this early stage of the competition, a game that would have never happened in the group stages, well, might have happened because we wouldn't have been in pot one, I'd imagine. But, you know, we'd have only got that one kind of fixture against a real big boy if we were in pot two, for instance. We've got PSG. We went to Atalanta. We're going to San Siro to play Inter, which is as good as it gets as far as nostalgia and all the rest of it and sort of European football heritage. That's what the one that I'm really buzzing for. That's the one that jumped up off the page and slap me in the face when the fixtures came out. So I get why people like it, but I'm just at this point at the minute where I'm unsure about it. And therefore, I don't want to say, yes, this is great and it's helped and it's made things better, because I'm still not 100% sold on it, if I'm being completely honest with you. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But what I can say is that in isolation, this is a really interesting game tonight. It's a really exciting game. I think that I don't want to say it's a must win, because I've just talked about there not being that much jeopardy in each individual game, and the fact that if you go on a bit of a run, you'll be able to climb up the table quite fast. And because you don't have to finish all that high up to progress, like, the jeopardy isn't there. But I do think when you go away from home in your first game in this league phase and you don't win it, which is what the case was with us. And listen, I was quite pleased on the night that we didn't lose it. I was quite pleased that, given that game came in between trips to Spurs and Manchester City, we managed to go there and leave unscathed. But I do feel like there's a responsibility on Arsenal to make the home games count, more so than maybe for some of the teams with perhaps more European pedigree, because in the last few years, we haven't been great on the road in the Champions League. And that, obviously, we were only in the Champions League last season, but that stretches into our Europa League form as well of the past. We just haven't been great travellers in Europe under Mikel Arteta's management. That's one of the few things I look at and I think I haven't seen enough improvement there. So that then increases the importance, I believe, of your home games, and it makes it imperative that you go out and get the points that you can. Now, PSG are a really, really handy side, and we talked about them on yesterday's episode in a lot more detail and at length with Quentin Gesp, who is a French football writer and a good friend of mine. If you haven't checked that out, go back to the last episode. I think it's around about 15 minutes in. Quentin joined me to talk a little bit about PSG, where they're at right now, what their strengths are, but also what some of their weaknesses are. And I've taken all of that into consideration when I've picked my team here. I want to get your predictions. I want to get your thoughts from the live chat as well. So keep them coming throughout, and we'll make sure that we hop into the live chat every now and then as we roll through the stream. Just a quick reminder, by the way, if you haven't done so already and you're watching us on YouTube, guys, please leave a like on the video, because it really, really does help. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're listening on audio, then please do leave us a review as well. We lost a load of reviews, as I keep saying, when we transitioned from a network that we were in previously to an completely independent podcast. And so I'm a bit upset about that. I've got to be honest with you, because when I go on some of the review sites and I have a look, then we've got around about 350 reviews on Apple. When I look on Apple, it only shows 140, which is really demoralizing, given we've worked so hard to produce a podcast that hopefully people enjoy and that people are subscribing to and reviewing, yet we don't have that showing to the wider world, which is a bit annoying. If you could help with that, I'd be very, very grateful. Okay, I'm going to dive into my team in a minute, but just very, very quickly, I want to remind you guys that this podcast is brought to you by NordVPN, best VPN service out there, and it's a service that I myself have plenty of experience using, and you can sign up now via the link below. Visit nordvpn.com/ChroniclesAFC for a mega discount and 4 months free at the end of your plan. With NordVPN, not only do I get extra protection when surfing the web, downloading and streaming, but I also have the ability to change my virtual location with the click of a button. That means I can access content that's geo-blocked, use streaming services that are not available in the UK, and when I'm traveling, I'm able to log into Sky Go, TNT Sports, BBC iPlayer, meaning I don't miss a beat. Sign up now via nordvpn.com/ChroniclesAFC and take advantage of this amazing offer. Plus, with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, it's totally risk-free. You won't regret it. nordvpn.com/ChroniclesAFC. I do want to quickly plug as well, while I'm on the subject of plugging, the latest Patreon episode, which came out about 10 minutes ago. Go over to our Patreon page. You can find the link in the description, patreon.com/The Chronicles of Aguna. Or if you're already a user of the Patreon app, or you already use that service because you're subscribed to someone else, then just search for The Chronicles of Aguna and it will come up. There's a new episode out now, an In Focus episode on Declan Rice, who I personally don't believe has been as effective this season? Is it down to his Euro 2024 hangover? Is there an issue there? Is it down to the way that he's being utilised? We explored that in great depth on the latest Patreon pod. So sign up via the link in the description to access extra content. Or if you already use Patreon, as I say, just search for the Chronicles of a Gooner. Right, let's talk team selection then for tonight. Let me know while I'm going through mine what you'd go with in the live chat, and I'll pick some of those out before we disappear. Right, whoops. I knew I was going to forget to do that. Change the page. Anyway, in goal is pretty easy for me. He's our number one by quite some distance right now. And I look forward to seeing him perform in the Champions League on the biggest stage tonight, and that is David Raya. Now, Ben White didn't train yesterday, and I'm assuming he's going to be out for this game. So I'm going to go with Jurrien Timber at right back. My two centre-halves, easy, isn't it? They're so good. They're so connected, and they are a massive part of what's good about this Arsenal side right now. So I wouldn't want to change that. Not in a game like this. Maybe you can do it against Shakhtar Donetsk or one of the sort of, with all due respect, weaker sides in the group, but you definitely don't want to be messing around with your defence against a very good PSG side. So Gabriel and Saliba start at the back for me. And providing he's fit and available, and he did train yesterday, I want to see Calafiori continue at left back. And we talked at length on yesterday's episode about the value and the importance of the Italian. And again, you can go back and check that out, so as I'm not repeating myself. But I think with Calafiori, we've got that balance between defence and attack. We've got that balance between a defender who's a very competent and capable defender, but somebody who also can have a big impact in our build-up play. Now, I've said it before, but when Zinchenko plays there, great. Build-up is fantastic. Really, really useful player. Helps us break the lines with his excellent passing range. But when you ask him to defend, he's not so good. I'm not saying, by the way, and let me be clear on this, that Calafiori is the perfect defender, because I don't think he is. I do think there are rickets in him. I do think there are mistakes in him. I do think sometimes he's overconfident in terms of the way he steps into midfield and goes forward. But I think with him, if he's coached right and under the right stewardship, people forget that he's just 22 years old. You can nurture this guy into being as well balanced as you possibly can be between an attacking fullback, whether that's on the outside or the inside, and a competent defender. He's got the physical attributes to defend well that Alexander Zinchenko just never had. And I think partly, when people talk about Zinchenko and they say, well, why don't we use him as a midfielder? I think it's partly because nobody really believes that physically he's up to doing that either. So I think Calafiori has that over Zinchenko. And so I want to see him continue, because I think we've looked more creative when he has played. And I feel like he gets the most out of Martinelli when he plays on that left-hand side. If I continue through then picking my team, I'll bring Thomas Partey back into the mix. Played at the weekend, obviously, and there were some question marks around his performance at points in the second half, but I still think he's really, really important to us. I'll play Declan Rice alongside him. Again, the subject of our In Focus pod that you can listen to right now if you're a Patreon. Then in the sort of false 10 striker / midfielder position, which is what we're kind of doing right now without Martin Odegaard, I'd play Kai Havertz, and I'll explain a little bit about why in a minute. Bukayo Saka would be my player on the right-hand side. He's Arsenal's best player, you could argue. He's been incredibly effective in terms of providing this season. He's got 5 assists and 1 goal in 6 Premier League appearances, so 6 direct goal contributions, but he's been more of a provider than a scorer this season. I'd stick Martinelli out on the left-hand side, and then the guy I would stick in attack for me is Leandro Trossard. Now, we're going to have a debate about a few players that I've left out of this, but this is the team that I'd go with. So just to read it through for those of you that are listening to us on audio. Raya in goal, Timber at right back, Saliba and Gabriel at centre-half, with Calafiori on the left side of the defence. Rice and Partey would be my midfield 2. Saka will play from the right, Martinelli from the left, Havertz just behind Leandro Trossard, who would be my my forward player. Now, Trossard and Havertz can swap, and we've seen them do that whenever we've kind of deployed this type of system. So I'm not sort of really set on it looking like this all of the time, but this is the personnel that I would pick, and this is the way that I would probably start the game. And there are a few reasons for this, okay? So when we listened to Conton yesterday talk about what PSG are good at, he talked about the technical ability that they have in midfield. And we think that their midfield will probably be Fabian Ruiz, a player that Arsenal were linked with before. We think it will probably have Warren Zaire-Emery in it, another very technically gifted player. And we think that they'll probably have João Neves in there as well, who they signed for a lot of money from Benfica in the summer, a player that a lot of Europe was interested in. In the end, it was PSG that were willing to stump up their cash and sign him. That midfield is technically really, really gifted. But what does it lack? It probably lacks a bit of physical presence. And the reason I put Havertz in the position I have, because normally, right, I'm adamant that Havertz should be the centre forward, because I like having him as a focal point. I like the fact that he gives us the option to go long. I like the fact that he can mix it with the centre halves and physically. I really like Havertz as a centre forward. I think he's been really effective and he's scoring goals at the moment. Whether you pay too much attention to goals in the Carabao Cup or whatever, you can't deny that he's on good goal scoring form. But the reason I say that Havertz should be the one that drops in is because I think that if he can get in with that midfield of Rice and Partey, and if you've got Calafiori coming in as well, as he likes to do, then I really think that physically we have a huge advantage over Paris Saint-Germain. I don't think that when you look at the players I've just named, João Neves, Fabian Ruiz and Warren Zaire-Emery, I don't think without Martin Odegaard, our midfield is technically as good as theirs. But physically, we've got a huge advantage. And so I would look to hone in on that advantage, take full advantage of that advantage, if that makes sense, and try and bully them a little bit and show that we have that physical nature about us these days and basically nullify what they can do on the ball. They are going to have possession tonight, Paris Saint-Germain. They are, because that's the type of team they are. They're not going to come there and park the bus, I don't think. If you see them sat back in a low block and struggling to get out, it will be because we've forced them into that situation. That will not be their intention. That is never the intention of a Luis Enrique side. And so if I see them in that position and I see them being forced back, I'm going to look at that and say that's really, really good from Arsenal. Some of the players that we should watch out for, I've mentioned the midfielders. Obviously, we know that Ousmane Dembele has been left out. Luis Enrique's press conference yesterday was dominated by that chat. He's decided that he's, for disciplinary reasons, not going to include him tonight, and therefore he's out of the game. He's not in the squad, which is interesting for us. But they've still got plenty of talent in those attacking areas that we need to be wary of. But they might look to get more width, particularly down the right-hand side as a result of that, with Achraf Hakimi, who will play at right back, I think, and with Nuno Mendes, who will play at left back. Now, those guys will get forward. That's what they do. And that should hopefully leave spaces for Martinelli and Saka. If Martinelli and Saka can isolate those two players, if they're indeed our wingers on the night, then I think they'll have a lot of joy. Because defensively, I'd have question marks over both of those players. But even if they do come down the flanks, with this team, with this physical presence, I think we'd be pretty well protected in the central areas, which is ultimately where they would look to move the ball into at some point, right? Nobody scores from wide of the penalty area. You're always going to play the ball inside. And Luis Enrique's side and this PSG side, having watched them on Friday night against Rennes, they like to do that really, really early. They use the width to break out. They use the width to try and get in behind you. But the first thought once they get there is how early and how quick can I move the ball inside? And where I say that they've got a really technical midfield, they've got a really smart midfield as well that makes really smart runs. And so, we got to be careful of that. Another threat that they have on the left-hand side is Bradley Barcola, who I think is going to be up against Jurrien Timber tonight. A player that's very, very tricky, likes to cut inside. Does a lot based on instinct, I think, and that makes him really difficult to predict and a tough player to keep tabs on. But yeah, I think PSG have plenty of threat, but I just think this side is probably physically our best side. And if you go with that to kind of try and supersede what PSG have technically, I think that's the way to go for it. I think that's the way to do it tonight. Couple of other points, because I did toy with the idea of playing Gabriel Jesus at centre forward, just based on his Champions League record, his pedigree in the competition, etc., etc. But then I started thinking about that game on match day 1 in Bergamo, where I thought he was really poor. And I've not been impressed with Gabriel Jesus at any point this season. I've got to be honest. And that's hard for me to say because I really did think that we'd start to see the kind of return of Jesus, and that Jesus this season, if he could avoid injuries and stay clear of those troubles, he could end up being a really effective player for us again. But right now, I'm just not seeing it. And I don't think there's a case to be made that says that he deserves to start the game. So, no, not for me. The other one I toyed with putting in was Raheem Sterling. And again, another player with incredible pedigree. I thought he was good in the League Cup. I thought he was decent when he came on the other day as well. You know what Raheem Sterling brings to the table. Maybe his Champions League experience could be something that we pull on a little bit here. And the other factor is just simply, does Gabriel Martinelli need a rest? Like, the guy has been relentless in terms of his work rate over the last few weeks. There's a part of me that says, yes, give him a breather, because bringing in Raheem Sterling isn't a downgrade. And if we have the squad, we should be using it as effectively as possible. We should be trying to manage people's minutes to protect ourselves against burnout and any other issues that we may encounter. But then I think he scored at the weekend, and maybe that gives Martinelli the platform and the confidence to go and build on what's been largely, in a lot of ways, an underwhelming start to the season for the Brazilian. So do I want to take him out of that situation now, or do I want to let him play his way back towards his peak form? Because obviously he was better at the weekend, and he scored, and he produced an assist and all the rest of it, but he's still not the Gabriel Martinelli we all know he's capable of being. So do I want to get in the way of that kind of natural rise again from Gabriel Martinelli? I'm not sure that I do, and that's why I opted to pick him over Sterling, but Sterling was under strong consideration from me. My prediction for this game is Arsenal 2, Paris Saint-Germain 0. I think we'll do a good enough job defensively, and I think we will eventually find a way through, even if we need to be patient at times. I think there will be periods in the game where we don't have the ball, and that's not something that we're used to normally. You could say that was the case at Spurs and at Manchester City, but I think that given the players we had missing, those were kind of special circumstances. But that's my prediction, 2-0. Let me know your predictions in the live chat, in the comments section after the live stream. If you're listening to us on audio, hit me up with your predictions via X or via the comments section on Spotify. However you want to do it, let me know. Yeah, and I'll be back with you guys on the match day reaction pod tonight, which will come to you guys from Emirates Stadium once I've finished up on commentary duty. Really, really looking forward to this one. Hopefully it's a game that delivers and I get lots of big moments to call. If I don't, it's going to be a bit underwhelming, but hey, what can you do? What can you do? Anyway, like, subscribe, all the rest of it, and I will see you all on the next episode of the Chronicles of a Gunner. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a full podcast looking back on this game. If you want some kind of instant reaction, I say kind of instant reaction because it's not like something I do within 5 minutes of the full-time whistle. It will be out within a couple of hours of the full-time whistle, just because working at the game, I have other responsibilities that I need to fulfill. But I'll get that out to you tonight, so you'll be able to listen to my thoughts from Emirates Stadium on that one. And yeah, sign up to the Patreon page for access to that. Don't forget to check out the Rice Pod too. Check out nordvpn.com/Chronicles AFC. And I'll see you all on the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves. Come on, you Gunners.